In the middle of the page, Aleph, it's smack in the middle, the line begins with the word bezeh. So we had a pretty challenging day yesterday. So when we starting in this line, this is where the Rebbe concludes speaking about hashpah ruchnis. Where even if the hashpah ruchnis, even if it comes directly from the koyach hayuli hu atzmi, it is still not the koyach itself that comes in the hashpah, but there's an oil that is nimtzach mimenu. And this is what we made a big effort yesterday to understand the difference between oil hanimtzach mimenu, oil hanimshach mimenu. Oil hanimshach mimenu, that it means that it is drawn, coming to a lower madrega. Oil hanimtzach mimenu means that it is reflective of the etzem itself, but it's only oil. It is not that the etzem is engaged in producing this oil in order to be mashpia. The etzem is present, and therefore the oil is nimtza. Therefore the oil is reflective of the etzem. But it's only oil reflective of the etzem, not the etzem itself. Aval hashpah tipa. Now we're going to the other side. Aval hashpah tipa, but the hashpah of the tipa iker hamshochoso hu meho etzem dafka. Its principal hamshocha is from the etzem dafka. Dafka means what means emphatically, means exclusively.
Doesn't it mean also specifically? So like it could be
okay,
both.
let's make some difference. So let's just what is he saying? I suppose yikir hamshochos me'etzem dafka. Oir hamshochos of hashpah ruchnis. There it's verkehrt, it's the opposite. But principally the hashpah ruchnis is from oir, not from the etzem, not even from the etzem hakoyach. Because this principle of hashpah of ruchni is oir yosher. There is the koyach hamaskil, then there's a seichel, and this is mashpia. It is true that the koyach hamaskil is rooted in the etzem hakoyach and so forth, and etzem hakoyach is rooted in the nefesh, but this is not what the hashpah principally engages. It engages the oir. That's it. Here in the tipa is verkehrt. Iker hamshachos. There the principle of the hamshach is from the etzem, not from the oir, but from the etzem dafka. Bezehu, and thus this is the meaning. We say the shoylesh hamshachoso hu, that the root of that hamshacha is mehakoyach hayulim hoatzmim dafka. It is from the koyach yulim hoatzmim. The koyches hoatzmim, not from the koyches from the koyches that are hamshacha, like koyach hamaskil, where it is already a koyach. Yulim hoatzmim means the reality of the koyach itself, the way it is in the nefesh. And similarly, mikol koyach shehatipa nimshachas. Any koyach that is from that becomes a a resource for the hamshacha of the tipa. Hainu gam ha'koyches meishehem hamshachoson. I'll come back to that. Mikol koyach shatipa nimsheches. In every situation, in every level from which where the tipa is involved to be nimshach. And then in parentheses he points out what he means by this mikol koyach shatipa nimsheches. The way he said that is nimshach from the koyach ha'ilihu atzmi. But the truth is that from any aspect of the koyach way from which the tipa is nimshach, hainu, which means gam mehakoychos kmei shehem b'hamshach. Even that level of the koychos, kmei shehem b'hamshach, the koychos as they are in the state of hamshach. You know, it's not the koyach as it is in the heyuli, in the etzmi, but the way it is b'hamshach, it's already, so to speak, a functioning koyach, like seichel, koyach hamaskin, and so forth. This is the koyach b'etzem hamshocha. Hareihu miguf v'etzem hakoyach. Even there, it is from the guf and the etzem hakoyach. It is from the essence of the koyach. V'loi mis pashtuso yilavad, and not only from the hispashtus of the koyach. This is a phenomenal Ayin that the Rebbe is saying. The hamshocha, these hamshochas are tipa, hamshochas are gashmi. It is not that it is nimshach from the etzem hakoyach and bypasses the entire structure of the human functioning structure. It bypasses completely. It just goes straight from the etzem. That's not the way it works. And that would not be meaningful. That's not the real thing. Like we say all the time, that the kavanah, the thoughts, and so forth, everything is involved in this hamshach. So therefore, it is not something that bypasses the conscious and the functioning level of the human being. Even the decision to proceed with it is also a conscious decision. So that there is an involvement of the koyches kmei shehem hamshach. However, even the hamshach, even as it is related to the koyches kmei shehem hamshach, hareihu miguv v'etzem hakoyach. There, within the hamshocha level is from guf ha'etzem hakoyach v'loi mihispashtus elavad, not from the hispashtus, not only from the hispashtus. This is clearly a pretty challenging thing to distinguish between the hispashtus hakoyach, between his hamshochas hakoyach, the guf v'etzem and the hispashtus. To give us a little bit of an understanding what this refers to, what is the distinction over here? How do you distinguish between the hispashtus hakoyach and the guf v'etzem in both in the hamshochas hakoyach, in koyach hadaris and in the hamshocha? So, one way to relate to it and to identify these two parts of the koyach hanimshach is, for example, we are going to work. Going to work has a lot of ramifications. Why are we going to work? And all other peripheral, important, but peripheral ramifications, peripheral to the activity itself. Now, going to work, for example, involves getting up and walking to the subway. This walking to the subway is a koyach, is a real function, is a real action that engages the whole person. It engages the whole person at the hamshocha level of the koyach. And then there is the spatial, so to speak, ramifications. What arouses it? What inspires him to do it? This is the hispashtus. The actual activity itself that engages the whole person. This is what we say, that even in the koyach hamshocha, it is from the gufi etzem hakoyach, not from the hispashtus hakoyach. Which means that the hamshocha is from the capability of the koyach rather than the intent and the accomplishment of the koyach. This is where the hamshocha's tipa comes from, at any level, because it goes through all the levels. As we said many times, a human being, nothing that occurs with a human being is robotic. Where it happens and he's not involved. That's not a human activity. He is involved, but in this involvement there are different levels, different depth. The gufi etzem hakoyach. This is the depth. This is what engages the living aspect of the person. So even in hamshoch hakoyach, it is not not just from the ramifications of the koyach, but from the gufi etzem hakoyach.
I missed this in the mashal with the going to work, going to the subway. You said this was his pashas hakoyach.
No. The inspiration to do it is his pashas hakoyach. What are you doing? Oh, I'm expecting such and such.
Expecting something?
I'm expecting to accomplish such and such. I'm going here and there. This is the hispashtus.
And what's the growth?
The activity. The walking.
So we're saying about the mshachas of the tipa that it's coming from the guf?
The guf etzem hakoyach. The ability to go to work. That's a guf etzem hakoyach.
Not the actual going to.
Not the actual going, which the actual going also there is the ability, the element in it, and then there is a spatial element.
What's the mile of the fact that the tipa is coming from the goof of all these koyachos?
All the fee, and being that sheho etzem nimshon behashpah azos, being that the etzem is drawn in this hashpah, lochein mizhave mahus v'tzius davar. Thus, what comes as a result of this hamshocha, this activity, is mahus v'yatzem davar, a metzius davar, a real presence, not just an implication, not just an inspiration, but a real metzius. Behu havlad hamizhab, which is representative in the fact that there is a vlad hamizhab, the metzius davar. The Vlad, the very special inyan of Vlad, is because it says it as Mahusa Metzius Dover, which means that even though this is the father's child, but somehow the father begets a child who stands totally independently of him. Totally a separate entity. A full-fledged presence in the world. Now, the hispashtus, in other words, the intent, the significance of an activity, exists only while the person who is doing it is present. But the guf, the etzem hamshocha, that is there regardless. Like for example, going back to the table. A table is a table, as we speak all the time, only when it is in your dining room and there are human and you are living in this house. Then it is a full-fledged table. But that's a hispashtus. That is the significance of this table. That's the human element. The guf, the etzem hamshocha, this is the mitzias of the table. It's possible, as we say all the time, you can build a table and take this table and move it to any dining room. This is a standalone entity. This standalone entity is missing the spirit, but it has the guf etzem. And this was had mizhava mehusa mitzius dover. The vlad ha mizhava. The vlad is a full-fledged human being, not a reflection of the father. He is not there only when the father smiles at him. he is there a full-fledged entity. Thank you very much. So that this comes to cognizance in the fact that we have respect for our children, even though our children are little babies, children, big boys, adolescents. There's a certain element of respect because they are real mention, a real entity. The respect there is, and this is a godly specimen. This is not mine. This is not a reflection of me. This is a godly specimen. It's a real presence. And the respect element is an imperative. That's how do you respect anything that the Rebbe made. Because this is a mahus which is dover, even though it came from the father.
How does this fit with when we're saying that the thoughts are very important?
Now what?
The kavanah and the thought is important for Shas Maisa. In other words, what does that have to do with guf and etzem? That seems like, kavanah and...
There are many other aspects as well. But all aspects are vested in a guf etzem adoba. Let's hold off a question. Mitzius hamizhava, the mitzius that comes into being, who oisay hamahus v'ho atzmus, is the very mahus, and we have the very reality, shenimsha b'hashpah that comes in this hashpah. The very reality of that nimshach in hashpah, this is what comes into mitzius, not something different, not some kind of a ruchni thing. כי להיות שההשפעה היא שהוא עצם נמשך בזה. Because being that the hashpah is consists in the fact that the etzem itself is nimshach therein, הרי העצם אין נעשה מבחינת סמוקי לדבר. But the klal is that the etzem never becomes as a mokoir for something else. Etzem is a true entity unto itself. It does not become subservient or a source for something else. It is itself wherever it is. The whole mokoir harei gila v'hispashtus, because a mokoir by definition is only a hispashtus element. Now when this brings about something else, like we say, an inspiration to do something. The inspiration to do something is wonderful, but it in itself is not a something. Hashpah, so the etzem means that the etzem itself becomes that new entity. Yeah. This goes on further. There's a limit how much detail we are going to go into. But yes, indeed, all the kavonas they're all participating. They're not creating the entity. They affect the entity. Just like a person has the koyach hamachshov. But what is the tendency of this machshov? What does he relate to? What does he reject? These are also effects of it, but in the more the ruchni aspect. The point that we made was that nothing is bypassed, but everything has an effect, and the effect is from the etzem mahus hadov. In other words, in thought, for example, there are two types of thoughts. There is a superficial thought, and there is a thought that is representative of the seichel and the midas of the person. The effect of the thought is only if of the essence of this thought. Not the hispashus of this thought. Now, with the extent to which the thought touches him, meaningful to him, that's the thought that is reflected. The child is not born with thinking these words. The child is born with the spirit that is behind these words. Rebbe here goes into enormous pains to identify the various aspects. We will try to follow through. So he says, it is not an effect of the etzem, it is the etzem itself, because an etzem does not become a resource for something. It itself is present in anything that results from it. Das mit dem Netz. Rak, and then in parentheses, Rak except Shabo bebchina shinoi hamahus. It comes in the form of shinoi hamahus, where the true presence is altered. What's meant it's altered? Mipnei shabo bebchinas havdalah meho etzem, because that it is separated from the original etzem, kichelek hanivda min ho'etzem, like a chelek, like a part that separates from the etzem, ukenitzus hanivda min ho'avuk, and like a spark that separates from the flame, which is called b'makimach. Now, the spark is of the same element, consistency, as the avuk. But there's a shinoi hamhus. The spark is only a small spark, a momentary presence. The avuka is a flame that is spreading out everywhere. And this is cheleg hanivda min ho'etzem. So cheleg hanivda min ho'etzem a chelik, a section, a part that separates from the etzem, essentially carries all the qualities of the etzem. But it is a chelik, it separates, and it can build its own structure, its own independent presence. Das meint chelik hanivda min ho'etzem. So even though it is part of the etzem, but it has its own definition of what it stands for. And then it begins to build on that essential chelik and a complete new structure. This we'll have to leave for, if we want to elaborate on this maybe a little bit, we'll have to leave it for next time. Okay, have a great day. My time is up for this morning. Schiedes. Call to.
Put a paper on the beam of we should